Okay, so guys, welcome. This is supposed to be a quick little crash course on how to run an encounter using the Heroes of Borderlands. You can start wherever you want in your adventure using these little booklets. And we're going to find out, can you actually run a whole encounter without needing the normal stuff that you would need, like the DMG, Dungeon Master's Guide, the Monster's Manual, and the Player's Handbook, which are these big, thick books. We're going to use these little booklets, okay? The one that you're always going to need is you're going to need the Play Guide, which is right here. You need the Play Guide. This is for the DMs and also for the players. There's no spoilers in here. It's just a reference guide for all the rules and stuff. So we'll keep this on handy. So you're going to need that. You're also going to make sure that you got whatever location you're going to start out in. So I think most of the time people are going to probably want to start out in the keep on the Borderlands, which is like the little fortress area, where you can like get supplies and it's a safe haven for long rests and stuff like that. But you're already pretty much long rested, so I'm just assuming that you already have a mission sent to you, the people of the Castellan of this Borderlands keep is already given you a mission to go out and root out problems in these caves. So we're going to skip right to the Caves of Chaos. In order to get to the Caves of Chaos, you have to cross through the wilderness, and there's a whole map for that too. You could technically start out anywhere, but I think I'd just like to dive right into the action and see how does the actual combat hold up? Can the crux of it all? Can I actually run combat with just these little booklets? And then of course when we're done, you'd go through the wilderness again. You'd run random encounters to see if you run into some stuff in the wilderness along the way. There's a whole map for that. And then you'd go back and you rest at the keep on the Borderlands, which is like a stronghold, which it's not a full city, and there's not like a full overarching plot. So like normally with these kind of adventures, you got kind of like the module tells you exactly what's going on for like this whole overarching story, but since it's kind of like an emergent storytelling kind of thing, you can just kind of go around wherever you want, and you can pick wherever you want to start, and the story emerges as you play. So what I've elected is for us to start here at the Caves of Chaos. So you're going to need this map, which just shows you all of the different cave systems that are out there. Okay, so we look at that. You're going to want to get this out. You're going to want to look at which cave you're going to start with. A, B, C, wherever C is. A, B, C, and D. A great way of labeling it, by the way. So yeah, you're gonna do A, B, and C, and D are the level 1 caves, and then there's like ones for level 2 and level 3, and you just consult your your guide, your little booklet that tells you where to go. So we're gonna start out in Cave A because it's the one that actually has extra walkthrough notes on there for a new DM, and it's also got kobolds in there. And I love kobolds, and that is what's on the cover of the book. Is this one with the kobolds in it. So we're going to run the one with kobolds. It's pretty cool artwork and everything, and we're going to get that going. So first of all, you're going to want to make sure that you have everything already prepped. Do not try to just get this up and running in a couple minutes. It's going to take you a couple hours. I don't care what the thing says about getting you up and running in minutes. It's not going to be that easy. So we're going to assume that starting out, you're already having all of your characters have already been made. Normally, you probably have a party of like 3 or 4 people, and I think that's how most of these things are balanced, is for a party of 4, but we're not going to use the other ones. I think the other one's the wizard and the rogue. We're just going to go with the fighter and the cleric here. So I already have those laid out here in advance. So I already rolled for their hit points. I already put down how much HP they have. The fighter has, let's see, 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 2 the fighter has 12 HP. The cleric has 5 plus 3, so it has 8 HP. And I basically have their character sheets already ready to go. And what's cool about it is, they have all the slots for it, right? So you want to make sure you already pick out all these cards. The players can do that. It's not very very, very difficult to do, but you can different options for the fighter. You can go with a long sword and a shield. So I put the long sword here and the shield there. But since we don't technically, that's a little bit more tricky to run if you're not just going based off of what the suggested thing is. We're going to go with the great sword, which is a 2-handed weapon, so you can't hold the shield. We're going to equip that, and then you can have like a little light weapon, they call it, that you can put down there. So we're going to put a dagger right there so you can see those equipment spots. Everything's nice and laid out, and people can visually see everything at a glance, which is really nice. So of course we've equipped it with the chainmail and the equipment spot. The cleric has their chain shirt there, and I gave them their money. The fighter only has 5 gold, which, hey, it's they got to go out there and make some coins, so that's an incentive for them to root out these caves, because the caves have all the loot. They have loot and magic items that you can find, so that's the incentive. And it's one of the easiest ways to level up. You're not going to level up at all when you're at the the keep on the Borderlands. Okay, that's more for resting and getting little mini quests and, you know, interacting with you know, social interactions and stuff like that. If you want to explore, you go out into the wilderness. You can level up if you get several different sections cleared in the wilderness, but it's only like level 1. The fastest way to level up is by going to the Caves of Chaos. Okay, and you have to clear a certain amount, and there's guidelines on there for the booklet on how many you got to run to get level up through 1 through 3. So I got a level 1 fighter and I got a level 1 cleric, and basically we're just gonna run through everything. And don't forget your little power tokens. You're gonna need those. This is not a normal D&D thing. The power token thing is not a thing in D&D. So they're basically, anytime you have like an ability, like a class feature that you can use, or like in the cleric, like if you use any of their spell slots and stuff like that, right here, they would have like, I should put both of their things on here. I don't have enough on hand right now, but just use your imagination. Boom. Okay, so they got their class features. Anytime they use their stuff, you know, all these slots would be filled, okay? And then you use any of your abilities or spells, it just uses a power token. It's like a generic thing. But just know that in normal D&D, there's actually names for this stuff, right? You know, and you just have to keep track of it manually, and it can be a little bit more cumbersome. And then normally you would call these character sheets, right? Like the cleric character sheet and the fighter character sheet, they call them class boards. So also make sure you got your combat tracker out, because we're gonna need that in just a little bit. So we're going to need our combat tracker for when we have to roll initiative. We're going to write down the names of the people that are involved and everything like that. Keep track of your death saves. Anyways, that's going to move in a little bit. And then, of course, we're also going to want to have a little consultation for like when people are up and they're on their turn for combat. They're going to look at this and they're going to say, like, what are my actions that I can do? Here's all the actions I can take. And then I think there's another one for bonus actions maybe. Let's see. Yeah, other things that you can do, you can move up to your speed, you can communicate, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can take a bonus action, and it tells you the bonus actions you can take here. If you're a rogue, you have more bonus actions because you're very, very quick and stealthy and stuff like that, and very cunning. So, yep, you can keep those as a reference too. So you want to have that set out there. I already know all the actions because I play D&D, but if you're a brand new DM, you obviously need that. So, let's get started here. So, basically, my players, I tell them that they're going through the wilderness, and we're gonna pick a setting here. So here's what it is. So we're gonna go to Cave A. So I would have this whole map out. I would show them this map, and then when I'm ready, I would bring out my next map, which is going to be this cave. Now, as you noticed, there is all of this is exposed. Now that's fine if you want to just have it start blank. Definitely don't start out with the monsters on there, but you're going to want to make sure that you have like some level of fog of war, okay? So a common way that people do that and they hide stuff is they usually cover it up. Now you can use whatever you want, whatever creative solution, but the classic thing is to use pieces of paper. And luckily the thing comes with a bunch of pieces of paper, you know, these extra things that you can use here, and you can lay them down, and look at that, just like that, all of a sudden our cave is completely obscured and you cannot see anything that's going on in it because there is a fog of war, okay? So you can use this extra sheet for whatever we want here, but all we want visible, actually, let me move my DM screen out of the way here. All we want is the players to come up through this little tunnel right there, okay? So that's setting the stage. Now you can have a DM screen, it's not provided. You can get them for pretty cheap, for like 15 or 20 bucks, just get like a little cheap DM screen. You don't really need it to have like, you don't really need to hide stuff from your players, but you do want to hide things like tokens. So just getting prepped for everything, you want to make sure you got your maps out, make sure your characters already have their character sheets rolled out, and then I would recommend for each encounter, use a little Ziploc baggie that's got all the tokens that you need. So for this one, we're going to need, it tells you right in the little booklet here, it says, I'm going to flip right to it. Okay, here's the Kobold layer. Normally all these are just found on just 2 pages. Like if you go to like Cave C here, you can see everything just on these 2 pages. But since it's the first one, it's a little tricky to run actually, because you have 2 pages you can flip through. There's this page, and then you have to flip to the next page because they got all these little sidebars. So we're gonna see how those work. I definitely don't think we need to worry too much about these little sidebars. They're, you can read them in advance if you want to, but let's just go in and see what we got. So what's nice is when you open up the page to run this encounter, it tells you everything you need to play right here. And anything that's in bold on any of these pages, like here's a pit token, and here is, let's see, a kobold and a giant fire beetle. Those things are things that are little props that you might need. But if you really want to look at the whole summary, it's right at the top here. It says poster map cave A, player tokens. You got 1 player per character. Yeah, obviously just get your player tokens out. I have my player tokens set out over there. You got the monster cards and the monster tokens that you'll need. So all the tokens I need, I have in that little Ziploc baggie there. And it says you also need your magic item deck, but you know, don't worry about that. You're gonna find some magic items in this cave, but you're just gonna loot when you have to do that and you have to pull it out. You can just pull it out in a little bit. You don't have to have that prepped. But one thing you do need prepped is all of your players' cards and abilities. So like the cleric here has access to all these spells, right? So I want to make sure that I have all these spells available and that's on their sheet so that we're not fumbling when we're going through. And I really would recommend that you already have your monster tokens ready. You don't really know where your characters are going to go, but you know, if you have them all in these little baggies for each encounter, you can just have them ready to go. So you know that they can only go in like there's only like 4 caves that you can start out with. So, you know, you can have 4 little baggies prepped. Don't worry about the higher level caves and running out of tokens. Just get those little baggies ready to go. You can just keep them here, but like one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to be fumbling through trying to find the monsters for like 15 minutes trying to set that up, because it can take quite a while to find these tokens once you pop them out and stuff like that. So just have it all ready to go, and then you're ready to run the encounter, and you're kind of ready to just play using nothing but just the book here. So that's what we're going to do. Now, if you need like a piece of scratch paper to improv and stuff like that, that's fine. You can, you might want to have like a little notebook, and you don't really need the DM screen, but on the DM screen, I also have the monster cards that are prepped here. So I have the tokens that we're going to use to place on the map, and I have the monster cards, which don't forget to show these to the player. They got really cool artwork. You don't want to show them the actual stats, but just show them the artwork, right? So you show them the artwork and say, this is the kobold. Here's what a kobold looks like, after you give them a basic description, and they can use that. So I'm actually, just for ease of use here, I'm going to pull my DM screen out of the way because it's kind of in the way for the shot. This is by Dragon Shield, by the way. I'll leave a link in the description of when this eventually goes up on YouTube to how to pick this up, but it's pretty sick. But you don't need something fancy like this. You can just get like a normal cardboard kind of one that they sell anywhere. So anyways, just imagine I'm behind the DM screen, and really, if you want to just move the DM screen out of the way, you don't even need that. You don't need to like hide rolls from the players. You don't need to fudge dice rolls, although a lot of times fudging dice rolls actually helps them rather than hurts them. As long as you're not a toxic DM doing that kind of stuff and like re-rolling your own die so that you're showing players, you know, the consequences of their actions and stuff like that, and using them as karmic dice. But anyways, yeah, you don't really need the DM screen, but you might want to use it for hiding the tokens, right? So like if I want to hide my tokens, I might want to put some of that stuff and have all my little assets that I'm ready to pull out as like surprises on the map, have that behind a separate screen, right? So anyways, we're going to have the players come out here. Okay, so let's see if we can run this encounter. So we have our adventuring party here. They probably want you to start with a adventuring party of 4. Funny enough, they don't actually mention what the recommended size of the adventuring party is, but typically it's 4. I mean, you got 4 sheets that you can play with. You can play with a rogue, wizard, and cleric and fighter. I'm gonna toss aside a couple of these, but assume that your party shows up here. You narrate them coming up to the caves. You know, you go into the ravine. There's a whole little spiel here about, you know, describing when you enter the ravines, and I think it's at the beginning here. It says, you know, get the Caves of Chaos map, and then it says, you pass through a dense forest of gnarled trees with grasping roots, the woods twisting as if it wards you off. So you're coming from the woods, you're coming from the wilderness, right? Undeterred, you emerge from the tangled thicket into a stark ravine, which is this guy right here. Its rocky walls rise steeply 100 feet or so above. Several dark cave mouths pockmark the walls at varying heights, the air stale and quiet. Among the rocks and dead wood that litter the ravine's floor are the bones of animals and explorers, picked clean by scavengers, like kobolds. Hey, you know, you don't mention that part, but that's the idea. Vultures leer at you hungrily from the barren branches. Where do you want to go? So then they say, oh, I want to go here. And you say that, you know, you should probably have them start with a level 1 caves. If they try to go to something a little more spicy, then, you know, try to have them go somewhere else, right? So yeah, you asked the players what they're going to do. Anyway, so let's move on. So let's go to the Kobold layer here. You can see this is how we're supposed to lay it all out. You know, don't show the players this, but we're gonna have some Kobolds over here. We're gonna have one Kobold when you first enter in. There's gonna be a pit trap, and there's gonna be some giant centipedes. And then if you really want to spice it up, we can add in some fire beetles to make things even spicier and a little more dangerous. So if you have the full adventuring party level 4, probably throw in those extra those fire beetles, giant fire beetles. But if you just have a party of 2 people, you might not want to do that because you might end up killing them. So I think I need to swap out our tokens here. Oh yeah, here she is right here. So we're gonna have our fighter, who is actually pictured on the human card here. So I figured, why not use her? Okay, there's our human fighter. And you know, she has her abilities on the back here for her species abilities, right here. So you know, twice per day she gets she has 2 power tokens that can fuel her good fortune. She can move 1 to give herself, you can remove 1 to give herself advantage on a d20 test. So it's basically like a little bit of luck features that you get there. You get to re-roll something, and you know, normally you'd have 2 power tokens on there, but I only have 1 on there for right now. I'll probably go get some when I get a break here in a second and load all these sheets up here. But she's also a soldier, and so she gets some perks. Once per turn, when she hits a target with a weapon, she can re-roll the weapon's damage dice, but that's just once per turn, so it's not really something that burns up, so we don't have to worry about that. Whereas other class features, they, you know, can only do certain things per day. And we'll get to that in a little bit here, okay? So anyways, we got our adventuring party right here. We have them approaching the caves here, and we got the girl fighter, and we got the dude, a little dwarf dude, and we need to have kind of like a little story on why they're sent out here, okay? So in my headcanon, it's because they've been sent out here because they went to the keep, and when they were sent by the people of the stronghold to investigate. There seems to be a series of cultists that have infiltrated these caves, and they went to none other than the Caves of Chaos, which are, you know, these caves right here that are known to be full of different monsters that have infiltrated them, and you know, it's a perfect place for the cultists to hide out on. Now I think that some of these kind of look scary, like this one looks more like a cultist. I wonder if this is there probably is the one with the cultists on here. This one looks more like a monster's cave or whatever, but you could always try to mix it up if they you know, you don't want them to go straight to the cultist cave. But yeah, these are like level 3 caves, so you know, you don't want a level 1 party going into there, okay? So essentially I kind of made that story up about you know, the reason why they're in the caves, but you could just say that they're adventurers trying to make some coin, right? So they're just trying to make some money. That's just what you do for a living. But it's nice when you have a directive, like a main overarching kind of plot, and you can make that whatever you want. And actually, if let's say they go find the cultists that are in this cave and they kill the cultists, well then maybe something else will pop up and give them something else to do. Like the plot will thicken as the cultists create a power vacuum when they're gone from the caves. Now all of a sudden the monsters start to become rampant and attack the stronghold, you know, the keep that you visit. All right. So anyways, we're gonna have our players would come up with names for these, and I would highly encourage you to make sure that they have some kind of connection with each other and that they didn't just meet, because that's always like, you know, you're in a life or death situation, you want to be counting on somebody that you just met, right? Though that could be interesting, you know, it's a story option. I'm going to have it be where this is a brother and sister kind of relationship, okay? So this girl, she's kind of a cocky fighter, you know, she's a little bit hot-headed. She likes, and let's say her name is Sarah, or let's make it something more fantasy oriented, like Seraphina or something like that, okay? Or Seraphine, okay? So Seraphine, she's out here with her old buddy. I'll call him Olforth, okay? So we got Seraphine and Olforth. This is a dwarven cleric, and he's kind of like an older brother to her. And, you know, they don't always get along or whatever that great, but they got each other's back, right? So he's the backup support healer, but he's pretty sturdy as a cleric. He's not as squishy as like a wizard. And we got our fighter who's going to come in there, and she's going to show off all of her amazing martial prowess. So they're going to come up to this cave here, and, you know, the players, you describe the caves to them. Now, one spicy thing could be they approach and they see a black monolith has appeared. And it's like 2001 Space Odyssey. and they're like, and it's like, you know, you're playing the dun 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 dun, bah, 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 dun 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 dun, and they touch it, wah, ah, like the monkeys from 2001 Space Odyssey. But no, this is just my camera. Yeah, it's recording. Actually, funny enough, 2001 Space Odyssey, the monolith, this looks just like it. Like it was supposed to represent like an interface for humanity, like the black screen, you know, black slate as the next leap forward for humanity and all that stuff. So anyways, this is hopefully the next leap forward for your adventuring party. So we're gonna have them come to the cave here, and here's the how the module says it's gonna be. So we're gonna see if how the module treats us here. We're just gonna run it as it says it is. Now I've obviously looked through this already in advance, but I'm gonna try to run this as if it's my first time going through. So I'm gonna kind of point things out as if it's my first time seeing it, but I did look through this whole page, and I flipped through this just to see what was in the cave, so I knew what we were getting into before we started. So that being said, let's get started. Hey, look, there's a section that says getting started, but we're gonna go above that, okay? Okay, so let's get the lowdown on this cave. So this cave says a band of kobolds recently stole a dragon egg and brought it over to these caves to eat, which is kind of savage. Kobolds usually worship dragons, so that's kind of interesting. But when the dragon egg hatched and a screeching dragon wormling emerged, the kobolds quickly realized they bit off more than they can chew. The kobolds tried to appease the fussy little wormling dragon with treasure, but they can't agree on what to do next. Should they return the wormling to its nest, or should they raise it themselves? Yeah, good luck with that, bro. And it says here you're going to add in the giant fire beetles to make the scenario a little bit longer and more difficult, right? Or it says if you want to, you can reduce the number of kobold warriors from like 8 to 4. It doesn't say that, but that's what I would do. If I only had half the party size, I might want to, and it's brand new players and they're not able to handle the combat challenge, maybe cut down the number of kobolds from 8 to 4. All right, so it says getting started. It says lay out the cave's poster map. We already got that laid out. It says don't place any of their tokens yet. The cave's contents aren't visible to the characters at the outset, right? So I have everything obscured by the fog of war, and then it says read this description here. There's a box text. Whenever there's a little box text here, you read it out loud, and you say to the players, the caves echo with high-pitched bickering overtopped by a loud bestial squeal. That's why it's good to read this stuff in advance. You know, some things you never have to pronounce out loud until you actually have to say it in a box text, okay? So you hear this beastly cry that comes out on there, okay? Now the players might be like, ooh, well, you know, Orthoth here might be like, oh, what was that? That sounded mighty scary. There's probably some beasties in there, wouldn't you say there, Seraphine? And she's like, yeah, we already know that. That's the whole reason why we're here, Orforth. Come on, man. Let's get this started. I ain't got all day. The sun's about to set. We definitely don't want to be stuck out here at dark. Let's clear this cave. You know, that kind of stuff. So, you know, they might say, since the guy said what kind of beastie was that or whatever, you would have him roll a perception check. So he would go on his sheet here and he's going to roll a perception check. So whenever you're doing like a regular ability check using your skills, if you have proficiencies in skills, you're going to roll a d20 for it. Okay. Most of the time you're going to be rolling d20. That's the main thing that you roll in these games. So we're going to look up the cleric here. So he's going to do a perception check, which is a wisdom-based check, and that is perception. So he's actually got a +5 to his perception, which is really freaking good. He's got a +3, plus he's got a proficiency in it, which gives him a +2 skill bonus. You guys don't need to know that. This is all already rolled in advance, but just know this guy has pretty good perception. So anytime it's like any of the senses, the 5 senses and beyond, you know, whether you're hearing something, smelling something, seeing something, whatever, you roll a perception check. So he's going to try here a perception check to see if he knows what that sounds like. So he's going to roll. He got 13 + 5. That's 18. The DC was really easy on it. It was like a 10 to know that it sounded like, you know, it's some kind of beast, right? But since he got like an 18, and he's a fairly well-traveled dude, even though he's only level 1, I'm going to say it sounded like it almost had like a draconic sound to it. It almost sounded like it was a young. It sounded like a high-pitched scream, but you can give them more information that it actually sounded kind of like it was coming, like the sound that a distressed child might make, you know, but this child is something more beastly. So, you know, it's kind of hinting that what's going on with this, and the sounds of bickering sound like they're coming from a whole bunch of different directions, echoing throughout the cave. You know, basically you give him a lot of information, okay, because he rolled really high on his perception. So he's going to enter here now. she's gonna just kind of march into the cave there. Now it's up to the players here. The guy can be like, oh, hold on there, lass. Wait a minute. We should probably check for traps, don't you think? Don't you think these if there's monsters in here, like say that it was kobolds. Say that you said it sounded like there was kobolds in these layers. Then you know he might be like, oh, those kobolds are tricky. You might want to check for traps. But since they don't know that, they might also ask, like, you know, does it look safe? Do the caves look safe? You could tell them that, you know, the cave looks really dark. It says in the module here that these are 10-foot tall caves, which is like right here. It says entrance, a 20-foot long tunnel leads into the cave. So you can say it's about 20 feet long, but it says right here, kobold layer features. It says the ceilings are 10 feet high, which is actually kind of weird for a kobold layer, because kobolds are only like 2 feet tall. So really they only need about a 5-foot high tunnel, right? And they're rough stone walls, and there's a dirt floor, and you know, as they walk in there, it's going to be littered with animal bones and junk collected by the kobolds. But the important thing is that the cave is unlit, because kobolds have dark vision, so you know, it's going to be hard for them to see. But they prefer it if it was totally dark, because they want very few light sources, because they can see pretty well in the dark. They don't have complete vision in the dark, because dark vision, if you look in the back of your book of the playbook, it tells you that, you know, it's kind of like them seeing in dim light when it's completely dark for us. So so you do want to tell the players that, like, when they look in there, like, what does the caves seem safe? And it's like, well, you look into the caves, they seem to be about 10 feet tall and completely dark. There doesn't seem to be any source of light. You hear the crying of a beast that sounds like it's in distress. What do you do? And now when you ask them what do you do, it's key here, because they don't have dark vision. Neither one of these races, humans or dwarves, can see in the dark, right? So they're going to want to try to go into the cave. Now, when they go in there dark and it's completely dark, they're not going to notice that there's this pit trap right here, okay? So, you know, even if they do try to check for the trap, you probably want to roll that with disadvantage. So, like, if they say, I want to check for traps, I can say, first, give me a perception check first. So you roll a perception check, they roll the 7, and let's say it's the girl, she's going first. She's got a 7, and she's got, her perception is +1, so she rolled an 8. That's not high enough, because you need like a 15 to notice in the dark that there's this trap. So she's going to walk right into it. She's going to fall into this trap, and that's where you bring out your little bag of goodies, right? So there's a 10-foot deep pit trap, and it's right here. So we're going to be able to put that down. But, you know, if they really were being careful about this, it actually doesn't tell you to roll any checks for it, but I would, if you're trying to check for traps. If they specifically say they're looking for a trap, I would make it the difficulty class a little bit easier. But since it's totally dark, you kind of want to show them that, like, this is totally dark. You can't see shit. So they're kind of pay for it a little bit by getting in this pit. So I say, you know, it's so dark you don't notice. You feel that as you go to walk, you feel the dirt underneath you seems to not really be dirt, but it's actually some sort of tarp as it gives way. And you know, you can make them roll a dexterity saving throw if they can try to quickly avoid it. But in this case, it's totally in the dark, and we're trying to show them that they can't see shit. So we're gonna have them fall down into this pit trap, and they're gonna have to roll damage. So it's bludgeoning damage probably. Let's see, a creature that falls in this pit into this pit takes 1d6 bludgeoning damage. So we're gonna roll for that, and we're gonna use our d6, the 6-sided dice here. And they're going to take 3 bludgeoning damage. So for the fighter here, she can afford to take some hits. She's going to take 3 bludgeoning. So she's going to go from 12 HP down to 9, which means we're going to have to swap out, get some more of our HP tokens here, because she's going to be down to 9. So let me go ahead and get those, and I'll also make sure we swap these out as well. Okay, so I just got some more of the resources that I should already had over here, which is like more HP, hit point tracking things, and more power tokens. So now everybody's fully juiced up on all their power tokens, and they got the right amount of HP. So the fighter now has 5 plus 4. They have 9 HP because they just lost 3 HP, and they're now actually prone. I don't know if it would mention that, but it should. So she fell into the pit trap, and it says the pit trap was covered by a large dirty cloth. When the character steps on the cloth, it goes away, dumping the character into a pit, at which point the pit is no longer hidden, right? But it doesn't tell them that they're prone, but I would mention that they're prone just so that you can consult that, because the prone is a condition where you're basically laying down on the ground. It can be face first, whatever, but you just want to make sure that you check the play guide Okay, so you got the play guide, and you would check that out. You go to the rules glossary in the back, and you'd say, oh, you have the prone condition. So we look under P here. Prone condition. While prone, you undergo the effects below. Number 1, restricted movement. Your only movement options are to crawl or to spend an amount of movement equal to half your speed. That's only in combat, okay? So you move half your speed. And then attacks are affected. You have disadvantage on attack rolls, and then if they attack you, that attack has advantage on the attacker if the attacker that's attacking you is within 5 feet. Otherwise, that attack roll has disadvantage. So it's something good to know that telling them in advance when they're prone, that they're going to be at a disadvantage if they try to attack anything, and anything that tries to attack them that's within 5 feet, like let's say there was a kobold waiting down there and it was waiting to beat the bejesus out of you, it would have advantage on the roll because you're face down, okay? And also, we're pointing out to them that they don't have, neither of your characters have dark vision, so it's totally dark. And you can point them out to that even before this situation happens and say, dark vision is where you can see things that are as if they're in dim light, and dim light looks as if it was bright light, like normal light. And you know that whenever you're doing things in dim light, it's your perception checks are actually rolled at disadvantage. So even the kobolds will have a disadvantage with their perception checks if they try to check things out, but they can see things and you totally can't. So when you're in total darkness like this, you are blinded, okay? So you tell them that you are prone and you are blinded. You step into this, you step out of the light of the outer, ravine here, and you plunge into darkness. And you are now face first. You take bludgeoning damage as you, just kind of face plant right into the dirt there. It seems that there was a pit trap that you've fallen into. As you clench your fist against the dirt, you realize that you are blind. Okay, so the blinded condition says you can't see. You can't see and automatically fail any ability check that requires sight. So she can still do perception checks for sound and stuff like that. She can still do perception checks on, hey, how's that dirt taste in your mouth since you just freaking face planted, you little hot-headed seraphine. And then, your attacks are affected. So if you try to attack anything, you would swing wildly, but you still might hit them, so you can still hear them and stuff. So, you roll that with disadvantage. So I'm going to keep that in mind going forward here. And so the person has fallen into the pit. They have taken damage. Now their buddy's like, call it like, oh, are you all right, lass? Like he's calling out to make sure she's okay, and she'll have some hot-headed remark about that. And then that sound right there is going to draw the attention of a kobold. So you're going to remove some of the fog of war here so that you can see the immediate area. And we're going to move it over here so that the players can only see just this first portion here. And basically that triggers the first kobold here. Now, all these kobold tokens are actually labeled, which is really nice. So if you want to keep track of which one's which, this one I labeled A because it's the first one that's going to be in the dungeon. And you can label them like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I'm going to move this stuff out of the way real quick. So we got that. And we're not yet into a battle kind of state. We're not really rolling initiative yet. We're just, she's just taking damage from the fall, okay? So basically, this guy gets the bright idea. He's like, she's trying to fumble around. She feels that there's walls around her. She's not sure how far up she is, how far down she fell. So this guy has some adventuring rope in his inventory, and you can check that under the equipment. If you look under the mundane equipment here and you search through it, you'll probably be able to find a rope, okay? But he also has a lantern probably in his inventory, okay? So they would have that as adventurers. They would definitely have that as like their basic kit here. And I think I took the rope out because I was using it for shooting another part of this video. But anyways, he would get his rope out and he would light a lantern, okay? Now, as he's lighting the lantern, it illuminates within a certain range, and you can check that on the back here. It casts bright light in 30-foot radius. So each one of these is 5 feet. So he's standing right here. It's going to be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So it's going to go out to right here. So he can see that there's a pit, but what he doesn't see is that there's a kobold that is just beyond there. And, it takes a bonus action to lower the hood, reducing it to just a dim light within 5-foot radius. So if he wants to, he can make it only 5-foot radius, just immediately around them. But, he lights his lantern. He's concerned about her, and he's about ready to get his rope out when suddenly the kobold comes in to check on there. Now, the kobold's indifferent towards them right now. It tells you that he's not necessarily hostile. He could be just chuckling and laughing. They're very mischievous creatures. And at this point, it can go a couple different ways. And it tells you on there, it's like you can end up just hearing from this kobold about how over here there's some giant centipedes that you got to watch out for. Or you can try to attack him. and he's probably going to flee because it's just, you know, they don't fight good together. They fight better in a pack. So you're not going to be able to easily cross this pit. Now you could, with like an athletics check, try to jump after him and help him, but you probably want to get your ally helped out anyways, and they can learn the hard way that they got to stick together as a teamwork. Now if it's a party that's like a party of 4 people, they would probably want to stick together here anyways and not just go chasing after this guy. But you know, after some shit talking or whatever, he might go and flee off to go meet up with the rest of his buddies. And I'm just going to remove this just for our ease of use here, and I'm actually going to remove all of these just so that we can kind of see what's going on a little bit easier. Okay, so you know, the kobold has some stuff that he can say, and he goes off running off. Now, here's an opportunity for her to look at her sheet too. If she's like, remember she was like trying to ask about the caves, whether or not these are evil caves. So you could tell, you can describe the darkness of the caves. You can say, you could have her do a history check about, or you know, or survival check, or whatever kind of check to assess the danger of this situation. And that insight might yield the insight that, okay, I need to turn on a lantern so I can see what I'm doing, so that I not get caught by this trap or whatever. But you know, she's already in that kind of situation. So another option that she could have done is she could have used her ability. The cleric could have used his ability. So maybe right now he's like, you know, he talks to the kobold, they do their thing. There's instructions on. I'm not going to go step by step for all this, but maybe he decides, oh, well, you know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of my abilities in my Acolyte here. And his Acolyte ability, that is his background, he's an Acolyte of this, he's a worshiper of some sort of god. You don't have to go through all this stuff right now, but it basically gives him access to what's called, you know, the guidance and spare the dying cantrips, but also you can cast Detect Evil and Good spell by removing the power token below. So basically it's a once per day ability that he gets at the end of his long rest. He probably gets this ability. So he's going to cast Detect Evil and Good. So I mean, he's going to use that power token right now. It's going to burn up that ability, and then we're going to look up his cards here. So this is actually really helpful for just like, you know, if you have a concentration spell like Bless that's constantly on all the time and you want to remember it, you probably don't want to keep your actual spells right where I have it here, because you want to keep that free so you can check out some stuff related to concentration and stuff like that, and only put those cards down when you're actually doing a concentration spell. But if we look, Detect Evil and Good, so he's going to cast that. We're going to look on here. It says it's got a range. You target yourself, so he targets himself. You sense the presence of otherworldly creatures. He's basically probably trying to look out, like, you know, when he first heard the cackling and stuff like that, before the kobold. The kobold doesn't even need to reveal itself. It could just, if you want to be mysterious, don't even have the kobold, you know, say anything. It just be this voice, like a golem-like figure from below. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to detect evil and good before the kobold reveals himself in the lantern light. And it says, you know, it's a magic action, and for the effect is that for the duration, you sense the location of any aberration, celestial, elemental, fey, fiend, or undead within 30 feet of yourself. So you'd actually go a little bit closer to be detected. But you, as a DM, that's where you're like, you know, it's close enough. They're burning up one of their resources. Yeah, the kobold's like 35 feet away right now instead of 30. Because he wants to be outside the reach of his lantern, but just give it to him. You know, just let him do it because it's a cool thing. And you know, since that's kind of like a smart heads up play, if you really wanted to, you could give him inspiration just for being like, you know, doing something that is, you know, rewarding them for doing something that is clever or smart or something like that, or just good role playing. So you could do that in this situation. I probably wouldn't award inspiration unless I was really being generous for a new player or something like that. But anytime you're trying to give him a pat on the back, give him inspiration. So anyways, this does require concentration, so we're going to put it in our slot, okay? It says it lasts up to 10 minutes. And it also says that this spell is blocked by 1 foot of stone, dirt, or wood, 1 inch of metal, you know, stuff like that. So this whole thing is made out of rough-hewn stone. So you know that, like, all of these, you know, the spell is not going to penetrate here. So if there was a skeleton that was right here, even though it's like within the 30 feet or whatever, that wouldn't matter because the stone blocks it, okay? So anyways, he's going to start concentrating on this spell. The way that concentration would get broken is if he took a hit somehow, he'd have to do a constitution saving throw against that, and that is probably something that's a little bit beyond this video, but that's how you break concentration. You can probably find more rules on concentration here, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, it says these factors break concentration. You do another concentration spell, you take damage, or you're incapacitated or dead. And it says you make a constitution saving throw to maintain concentration, okay? And the DC is equal to 10 or half the damage taken, whichever is higher. So that's standard D&D stuff, but it's actually nice. It tells you right on there. Okay, but you could probably also have found that in the back of the play guide as well. I'm sure they have like a concentration section, right? Let's see, cone, condition. Okay, they really don't have oh, right here, concentration. Some spells, and it basically says all the stuff that's right there in that spell card. It's the exact same text that was under here. That's pretty cool. All right, so there's a lot of ways you can slice it. Do you want, and you have to decide kind of ahead of time, like, you know, how do you want this kobold to approach, but you got to be flexible. So if you think it'd be funnier for it to initially be like a little golem and kind of be very spooky and obscure, and like you can only hear its voice, but you can't see it, you know, and maybe the kobold tries to sound like it's tough, but you know, they do a perception check and it's like, it sounds like this guy is just a little dude. Anyways, he's going to reveal himself in the light and it's going to be, oh, it's a kobold. And you can, when you show the kobold, whenever you show it, then show the art. Okay, so get the kobold warrior art out here, show them that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like a little dragon dude. It's like a little lizard guy without wings, and you know, and if they want to, they can do like a history check on you know, or like a nature check, because they're, you know, you're doing like a check on the natural world, you know, monsters and what they're all about. So these monsters, they're small little dragons, and it says right on here, in case you don't know anything about kobolds, it gives you the lore. It says, these are cowardly cousins to chromatic dragons. Kobolds serve draconic overlords as warriors and servants. What they lack in ferocity, they make up for in zeal and ingenuity, which means they love using traps and little tinkering around with things, and they're very tricky. They're tricky little bastards, and usually these caves are going to be lined with all sorts of traps. Luckily for the adventurers, this is a level 1 dungeon. There's only really that one pit trap, but if these kobolds were trying to kill you, they would have traps everywhere. I mean, they have spikes that would come out. They would pour, you know, hot grease on you, or oil, I mean, and then they would have like a greased ramp that would shoot down into a pit that has spikes coming out of it, and they land into the spikes. I actually did that in our campaign. You can check it out in our Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign. I did a little section with kobolds where they had like a little Christmas themed dungeon, and there were candy canes, and there was a giant gingerbread golem monster. Anyways, if you want to check that out, it's in the playlist for Waterdeep Dragon Heist. You can check out, see how I ran kobolds here, if you're interested in seeing an example of how to run D&D in your campaign. So anyways, the main thing to know about these guys that you wouldn't tell the players is that they have pack tactics. So they always have advantage on all their attack rolls whenever there's like another kobold nearby. So whenever there's another kobold standing next to them, they're just going to be like really landing all their hits. But kobolds are sunlight sensitive, which they can't go out in direct sunlight without getting disadvantage on their ability checks and attack rolls. So this guy doesn't want to come out here. He doesn't want to have to the kobold would not come out here. So by looking in this advance, you might want to look at the stuff because you would want to know that these kobolds do not handle being out in sunlight very well. Now lamplight is no problem for them, so they could actually have this dungeon lit up, but I'm going to assume that these kobolds only recently got into this dungeon, because if it was really a kobold dungeon, I'd have it like 5 foot tall tunnels, which actually make this dwarf have a really cool kind of interesting thing, because then the dwarf wouldn't have to duck, but the fighter, the female, she's too tall. She would have to hunch over and stuff like that and feel uncomfortable as she tries to crawl through these smaller spaces. But I'm guessing that this actually used to be these tunnels where, let's say a lot of these tunnels were, we got to make it up, right? Let's say that they were initially like smugglers would use them, and thieves, you know, a thieves guild that used to run supplies or whatever, and they used to use these little mini tunnels that the kobolds live in, you know, or something like that. Maybe they made them 10 feet because they were humans, and now they're using the caves for that, right? So that's a little bit of backstory that they don't know, the adventurers don't need to know, but if they start talking with the kobolds later, the kobolds can tell them about how they just moved in, and how this, you know, one of the kobolds might be a really smart one, maybe a little older one, that tells them about how, you know, it was previously used for something else, but they're really smart and crafty and they made it their own. So anyways, they're going to go through this whole scenario here, and we're going to have it just where the kobold actually mentions that there's these centipedes that they can fight, okay? So, you know, he's going to basically go tell everybody what's going on, but he's going to kind of, you know, say like, hey, you know, you guys are pretty cool. Just make sure that you know, don't bother us. We got a lot going on with this dragon, or whatever. They got a lot going on with the hatchling or whatever. You can say the hatchling, you know, requires our attention or whatever, and it can kind of go piss off. But, you know, if the adventurers want to be able to get on the good side of the kobold, you know, but let's say that they're not going to be hostile to the kobolds, because it would turn into this big fight. Let's have them fight the centipedes, okay? So they're going to get out of here. They're going to do a rope. what did I say his name was? Olforth? Good old Olforth here. I'd be like, here you go, lass. Grab onto this rope and I'll pull you up in a jiff. And she's like, yeah, about time, whatever. So she's going to get pulled up by him. Maybe they could jump across. That'd be usually an athletics check. Unless they try to do a flip or something, it would be an acrobatics check. Anyways, they eventually make it over here. If they do something really smart for getting across it, give them some inspiration. But anyways, they talk it over and they basically decide, okay, you ask the players, like, what would each of you like to do? A lot of times as DMs, they say, what would you like to do? And then one person will say, I want to go do this. And they don't really consult with the other person. So what would each of you like to do? Maybe the girl, she really wants to go take on these kobolds, but this guy's like, wait, hold on. Let's go try to take out these centipedes or these monsters that they mentioned. The kobolds call them something else. The kobolds, they speak in like a pigeon speak, you know, they're not, I think they call them the many legs or something. And it gives you all these options for how you can use deception to trick them with an outlandish lie. You can use a performance check to see if you can amuse the kobold with a jaunty little tune that entertains it so it likes them. Or you can try to persuade them, convince the kobold that they mean no harm. So they can really just say that they're looking for cultists. And the kobold's like, we're not cultists, but we do have our own problems. Anyways, I'll tell you what, if you can deal with that many leg thing over there, then we'll help you out. So what does he call it? He calls it the many legs, okay, right here to the west. So he'll grant them entry, and he warns them cryptically about the many legs to the west. But, you know, if they fail these checks to persuade him, you might give him more than one check to fail, because that's kind of harsh, just failing in the initial check. But if they fail like twice to convince him that he's on their side, it turns hostile. And then you would roll for initiative, which means combat starts. And then you want to get your combat tracking thing out, which is this thing right here, okay? So the next part here is we're going to actually have them fight the centipedes. So we're going to go out here. They're going to be cautiously sneaking. They're going to try to get the drop on the centipedes. And we're going to try to ignore things like being surprised and like getting the jump on the centipedes, and just say like, they see the centipedes over here. The centipedes see them. The centipedes are immediately hostile, and we're going to run that encounter right now. Okay, so we're about ready to get started with our combat here. And since we're using pre-generated characters, we don't really have much on their whole backstories and stuff like that. But one interesting thing to consider is that there's some spicy stuff you can do. Like, for example, old fart here, sorry, not old fart, old fourth here, so on and so forth. He has got a fear of spiders, okay? And knowing that, you might want to tell the players that beforehand, but it's going to make this next part more interesting. So always try to give some sort of flaw or fear or something like that to the character's backstory if you can when you first start out. So, you know, maybe give them some sort of quirk about them, something that's interesting, maybe about that a lot of people don't know about them, or maybe like some flaws, you know, like maybe like for the flaw for Seraphine is that, you know, I think of Sarah as in like a princess. It's the Hebrew word for princess. So, you know, maybe she's a little bit spoiled. Maybe she's from a nice upbringing, but she chose the adventuring life because she wants to show off just how badass her skills are, and she's trying to make it out on her own and prove herself or something like that. So maybe she's a little bit proud. Maybe she can be a little bit hot-headed and arrogant, but she's, you know, she really has a good connection with Olforth, and you know, she knows that Olforth has a fear of spiders. So creepy crawly creatures are going to make him a little scared. So that's going to be interesting. So let's imagine that Olforth is carrying his lantern with him. Okay. Now, if it was the girl, she's got a two-hand weapon. She's a fighter, and that greatsword is a two-hand weapon. And it tells you on the back here that she's carrying, it's a heavy weapon, and it's two-handed. So she cannot carry the thing. So it's going to have to be him. Now, since he's got the lantern, he's going to be the first person to go and enter the cavern. So as he enters this little area, he enters this section. And what is the name of this section? It's A something. He's going to be entering into section A3, the Centipede's Den. This cave contains heaps of waste. 2 giant centipedes skitter about, picking at refuse. So they don't, you know, they could get the jump on them with surprise. Say they were trying to sneak. Maybe if they have like a rogue in the party. The rogue is like the thief. If he was trying to come along, he's probably going to use a stealth check to try to sneak up and get a sneak attack. Or I should say a stealth attack on the centipedes, because sneak attack is its own separate mechanic. But anyways, it's more of like a distracted attack. Anyways, so these giant centipedes scavenge the cave. They're immediately hostile toward other creatures. The kobolds are afraid of the centipedes. In fact, they report to any who mention the beasts. If the characters slay the centipedes and show proof to a kobold, this deed earns the kobold's respect, improving its attitude towards them to a friendly demeanor rather than, like a hostile one. And then the A4, the common area, is over here. That's what I have obstructed by the book right now. So the players do want to get to the common area because they want to get to where the dragon's egg and the wormling are, but they don't know that yet. They just hear the cries of this baby dragon as it's, the dragon wormling as it's crying out. So anyways, we're going to start with combat here. So I say you see the giant fire beetles, or not fire beetles, you see the giant centipedes. And it's interesting because, like I said, if you wanted to have the giants, the fire beetles, you could pair them together. And what we're going to actually do is we're going to stagger them. And I'm going to show you how you do that, where combat starts, and then if things are going too easily for the adventurers, like they should kick these things' asses. Okay, they should have no problem just stomping on these centipedes. But if they have trouble, then no need to give them more. But we're going to have it as a backup to escalate things and make things a little more dynamic and a little bit more out of a horror movie. You're going to see that there's going to be some dudes joining them. Now, one thing that you got to remember before you start combat is that you always got to read the abilities of the monsters. So we're going to have some giant centipedes here that are picking through the refuse, and I'm going to move the dwarves thing over here, to kind of cover that up so that they're picking through the refuse right there, right? So they're a little bit further away. We got giant centipede A and giant centipede B right there. They're going to walk in on them picking through. Now, what's interesting is what I want to do is when I already know in mind that I might want to use the giant fire beetles. So when they come closer like this, I want the players to engage them, since only one of them really has ranged weapons, the dagger over here. So they're going to have to get close, right? Or the centipedes are going to come to them depending on how things are going. And, they're going to get trapped in here kind of, because there's going to be a way out, but that's when we're going to have the giant fire beetles come into here. Now, it doesn't say that the fire beetles can crawl on ceilings. It doesn't say otherwise it would say they have, like, one of their abilities is they would have like a climb. Oh, no, they do. Oh, yeah, right there. Yeah, it says they have a climb speed of 30 feet. So it's good to look at that before we start, because I don't know if the centipedes... Oh, no, they do too. The centipedes also have a climb speed of 30 feet, meaning they shouldn't just be... These guys are picking through the refuse, but what they don't notice, actually, is that they're in league with the giant fire beetles. And the fire beetles are maybe maybe they're subservient even to the fire beetles. It's like the alpha male versus... the alpha beetle of the situation. So we're going to use both of these guys, and what's going to happen is that they're going to go in there and they're going to be surprised by the fire beetles that are going to approach. So the fire beetles are not on the map yet. We're going to put them there, and the fire beetles, they give off this glow. So you don't want to start with the fire beetles, because the fire beetles are actually we'll say this one's actually on the wall here, just to kind of show off that these things can crawl. You could have them like on the ceiling too, or whatever. That'd be kind of interesting, because they're 10 feet high, and the players wouldn't be able to reach them on the 10 feet ceiling. They'd have to make an athletics check to jump up there. So you can be as creative as you want with this, even though it's very simple. So these centipedes, they could be up on the wall, 10 feet up here, and that's just too high for the players to get to without having to do some sort of check. They have a reach of 5 feet, but they don't have a reach of 10 feet. Normally you can reach attacks that are 5 feet horizontally or vertically. Now, it's hard to run things in vertical kind of fashion, but you could definitely do that. So the fire beetles, they do give off a slight glow though. So, it'd be kind of interesting if the first thing they saw in the darkness was this glow. But anyways, the reason why we mentioned that the dwarf has this fear of creepy crawlies is because as soon as they walk in there, we're going to do a little improv. It doesn't mention it in the campaign notes here. Sorry, it's not campaign. In the booklet notes. But we're going to say, you see this centipede, and immediately your stomach lurches or whatever. And what you can do here is you can do two different things. Number one, you could have Olforth make a Constitution saving throw to see if he can keep his lunch inside the stomach, because he might be sickened by them picking through the refuse. He's just grossed out, okay? Maybe he ate something bad. Okay. And then the other option is, which is probably more realistic, I was originally thinking, is you see the centipede, you hate... and it reminds you of the spiders that attacked your village growing up or whatever. And, get these flashbacks, PTSD. Give me a wisdom saving throw because you're trying to resist the frightened condition. Now, you don't actually have to give him a frightened condition. Let's be nicer. Let's not use the frightened condition. That's because pretty just debilitating, where he has to like back away and run away. But the reason why I want to do this is because I want to make it harder for them. I want to make it so it's dark and scary. So I say make a wisdom saving throw to see if you can hold on to your lantern and not drop it, because this lantern is fragile. And I'll say that as he comes around, he's going to try not to trip and stumble and then drop the lantern as he reels back. So I'm going to have him make a wisdom saving throw for that. It's not part of the module here, or not part of the booklet, but I'm going to look up his wisdom. I'm going to look under his saves. So the cleric right here, he's got a save. He's got a +5 to his wisdom save. So that's actually going to be pretty easy for him. The DC is something that I set, the difficulty class. And I'm going to make it actually pretty easy to make the save, because this is like, I could pair it with something else, like a sleight of hand, to see if he drops it or something like that. But it's something it's not supposed to be super hard. It's not supposed to be something that's very likely. But if he does roll really poorly, it makes sense that, yeah, it's going to go very badly, and that he drops the lantern. If he makes a wisdom save and it's really bad, like he rolls a nat 1, then you might have it so that the lantern just shatters. But if you make it so that he say it's like a gas fed lantern, say he drops it, it might just snuff out for a second. Okay, so we're going to roll for that. He rolled a 2, so a 2 + 7, so he rolled really bad. That's almost as bad as rolling a nat 1. In this case, it's up to you, but for me, I would like to create a more dynamic situation, and I say that he actually drops this. His knees almost give out on him. He stumbles forward, he trips, and he smacks it up against one of these rocks over there. He goes to brace himself. He doesn't quite fall, but he smashes his lantern. Now it's complete darkness, and that gives advantage to, I think, the centipedes. Again, we got to check to see if these things have dark vision. They do not. So interestingly enough, in this situation, the way that this is ruled, you can check the back of the book for vision, but they don't have dark vision. So they're also going to be blind. So they're going to try to make an attack in the dark, and they're going to be making an attack at disadvantage, and so are our adventurers. They're going to also make attack at disadvantage. So first of all, we're going to roll for initiative. That's the very first thing that you do. And then we're going to try to factor in the giant fire beetles to make that more interesting, okay? And the fire beetles, luckily, will provide some light to the situation. So anyways, we're going to roll for initiative. I just noticed right away when I was trying to roll for initiative here, I already pre-rolled everything in advance, and I didn't leave enough room, so that's a classic mistake. So we're just going to get a fresh page here on the old combat tracker. And I'm just going to toss this aside here. Plus, I'm still going to keep the numbers they rolled. So the girl, Seraphine, she rolled a 1, and Olforth, he rolled a 7. So we're going to see it. We're going to also roll for the giant centipedes here. So let's say that the A is going to be this one, and then we're going to use a different color die to keep track of the other one here. Now, when it comes to groups of enemies like centipedes, you could just always keep them together. And say they were fighting against all these kobolds, and there's 8 kobolds they're fighting against. It's up to you if you want to have them grouped together and just all roll for the same initiative. It can be very tricky to try to keep them grouped together as a massive group if there's 8 of them. But if there's just 2 centipedes, you could just have them roll for the same initiative, or you could just come up with a number in your mind and say, they're kind of slow, so they're going to be an 8, So I would say an 8 is a pretty slow initiative, but they actually rolled a 7 and a 1. So I'm feeling bad for the players in this scenario. In my head, I was thinking that's an 8. They're going to go on an initiative count of 8, but I'm going to roll for them. So let's see what they get. They roll a 2 and a 3, actually. So they actually rolled terribly, and they don't have any bonuses to their initiative, I don't think. Let me check. It tells you right here. Initiative +2 to both of them. So actually, that's a 4. 2 + 2 is 4, and 3 + 2 is 5. So they rolled a 4 and a 5. But we're going to leave some room on here because we're going to add in those fire beetles. So you have all these slots. You have 15 or 20 slots here. We're going to try to space them out. So we're going to write down the initiative numbers. So first just write the numbers down and then write the combatant, okay? It just makes it a little easier. But I would recommend you actually get a dry erase board that you can easily move and slot them around, so that when you add people or subtract them from the initiative, or when they die or whatever, and you need to take them out of there, it's just a lot easier to use that. And there's combat trackers online that you can get for that. But this is what we're going to do. So first of all, who do we got first? We got the The highest is Ulforth with 7. So I'm going to write him actually one slot down here. So I'm going to 7 for Ulforth. Then we got a 1 for her and a 5 and a 2. Or sorry, a 5 and a 4. So I'm going to write 5, 4, and 1. So the girl, actually she rolled more than 1. She should have a bonus to her initiative. Sorry, actually I forgot to add the initiatives for the players. So the players have, it's based off of their dexterity, but it might say it's somewhere separate on the sheet here just to make it easier. Yeah, oh yeah, actually he's got a -1 because he's got a -1 dexterity. So actually, Ulforth got to roll the 7, like a natural 7 they call it, you know, without any modifiers. It's the natural number he rolled. And then he rolled a dirty 6. So it's like a, you know, 7 minus 1 is 6. And then for the girl, she is going to get a +1 to her dexterity. So that affects her initiative. And if you forget it there, it's right there. It tells you your initiative, but it's the same as your dexterity value. This is just another spot where you can check just to make it easier to find it on there, okay? So first is Ulforth, then it's going to be Centipede B. I'm just going to write Cent B, and then Cent A for Centipede A and B. And then there's going to, and I don't need to write the HP technically of the centipedes, but I can if I want to. It depends on whether or not you're showing this to the players or not, or whether or not they care. But, you know, just for transparency, you could show how much HP they have. And just in general, in D&D, you can roll to see like the variable amount of HP. So it tells you how much HP they normally have. They have 9 HP, but usually like there's also a way you can roll for it. So they don't always have to have 9 HP. Sometimes they'll have 6 HP. Sometimes they'll have 11 or whatever. I'm not going to go too much into CR ratings. Don't worry about that, but definitely make sure you test the stuff out before you try to play with the players. It always goes smoother if you do a practice run before you actually try to just do the combat, because you'll surprise yourself with what happens, okay? So I did mention before that the centipedes, they don't have dark vision, but they do have blind sight. Blind sight, if you have blind sight, you can see within a specific range without relying on physical sight. Within that range, you can see anything that isn't behind total cover, even if you have the blinded condition or are in darkness. Moreover, in that range, you can see something that has the invisible condition. So even if the player had an invisibility potion, they'd still be able to detect them. So blind sight's actually very good. It's even better than dark vision, because dark vision you can't even see colors and stuff like that. Things that, you know. So there's some limitations to that as well, and you can play around with that. So anyways, let's check to make sure the fire beetles don't have that. Oh no, the fire beetles have blind sight too. So what I said before about both people fighting with disadvantage, like, no, these guys are going to attack normally. The insects are. The players are going to be rolling with disadvantage though, because they're in the dark. So good luck to the players. Let's see what they can come up with, and let's finish writing the initiative order here. So we got Seraphine, and I'm going to spell it like this actually. Like a seraph, like an angel, because Sarah would mean like princess in Hebrew, but I think Seraphine sounds more like she's an angel, and I think she resents that actually, because she's like, I'm no angel, I'm a fighter, so I'm not a goody two shoe, right? I'm not a paladin here. So anywho, let's get started with the combat. So we'll start at the top of the round here. So first off, we got Ulforth. He's going to go first. So he's actually going to probably use his movement to kind of retreat back because he's scared. So he was right here. They have to be in the middle of the square. So let's say that, you know, she was basically right here, and he's going to try to move back. And since he can't see, I'm actually going to do like a little thing that is a spicy thing as the DM. He's going to try to move back to here to safety, right? So he's going to try 1. This count going through her space counts as 2. So he's actually going to go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So this is as far as he can go. So he's actually going to try to back up, and he's going to try to use 25 feet of his movement to go back there, and he's going to try to, you know, still stay within range because he still wants to be in range to fight, and but he's outside their range of them because it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. He actually could go right here to be totally out of this one's range, so maybe he'll do that, right? But I'm actually going to say, as the DM, you know, he's completely can't see where he's going. I'm going to see if he smacks into her. So that's going to be an acrobatics check to see if he can go around her, or you can have her make a dex saving throw to avoid him, or you could do an athletics check. You could do a number of things. You could do, you know, a survival check if he has some way of like, you know, sensing under the floor. He could do a perception check to see if he notices her. Let's do perception check because that sounds like a good idea. So his perception is pretty good. So in this case, as the DM, I might say either give me a perception check to see if you notice her and smack into her, or give me an acrobatics check to see if you can nimbly avoid going around her and smacking into her. So, and since his acrobatics wouldn't be that great, he has a -1 to his acrobatics. He's going to want to go with the perception check. So the player's like, oh yeah, I got good perception. Let me do that. So he's going to roll for that. He rolled a nat 20, which is great. So not only that, he's got a 25 total. 20 plus 5 is 5 wisdom there. I think there's like a little something in this die, actually. It's kind of interesting. Anyways, ADHD notwithstanding. So he definitely avoids her. Goes like that. Now, since he rolled so good on his perception, I actually say that just for flavor here, he actually notices that there is something, he hears more skittering along the walls of the cavern or whatever. So basically he's like hearing the sounds that there could be more. So he yells out, I asked him, do you want to tell your compatriot, do you want to tell Seraphine what you heard? And he goes, why does it always have to be the creepy crawlies every time? Watch out, lass. I think there's more of them above us. I can hear them skittering about. Wee little bastards. So he calls out like that to kind of warn her about possibly there being some other enemies in there, okay? So here's what I would probably do in this situation. Let's say that it's going to be an action for him to fumble around and try to light his lantern on, because it's actually pretty hard to light stuff in the dark. You know, but if it's a torch or something like that, it usually takes an action. So he's going to try to get ready to do his guiding bolt, but he's not quite ready for that. So if he could see, he would probably actually ready an action to, you know, like if the thing gets close to him, he's going to attack it when he can see it, and that would require his reaction and the action to like ready an action to shoot. But yeah, he doesn't really have much. He has a Sacred Flame here, which is a cantrip that he could use. That's one creature you can see within 60 feet of yourself. So I guess he could Sacred Flame here because, or he can't Sacred Flame here because he can't see the enemy, but he could do something like, I mean, he could cast Light actually. You know what's actually interesting? We were just talking about like whether or not he can light his lantern or whatever, but actually in this case, he has something that I don't know if it requires concentration. No, it doesn't. He has the cantrip called Light, which a cantrip is like a level 0 spell. It requires no spell slots. It'll require basically none of your power tokens. So he's going to cast Light because he can't see shit, and he does not want to have his whole team being attacked in the dark by these things, and they would be rolling normally against the players, and the players wouldn't be like swinging against them with disadvantage. So he's actually going to use his action, which is the magic action. He's going to use, that says a target has to be a larger, smaller object you touch that isn't being worn or carried by someone else. So it can actually be any object, right? So what he's going to do is he's actually going to use that on his mace, and he's going to make his mace glow in the dark by casting Light, okay? And it lasts 1 hour. So for the next hour, his mace is going to be like a lantern that could give off bright light in a 20-foot area and dim light for another 20 feet. So 20 feet would be 5, 10, 15, 20 for bright light, and then dim light here. So actually what's funny is this in dim light, you still can't see that well. It's considered obscured. So he probably wants to still move closer. It's not as good as his torch because the torch shed it off in 30 feet. 20 feet only goes this far. So there actually is a slight disadvantage for him casting Light, but that's what he's going to use for his turn, okay? That's going to be his action. He really can't do much for his bonus action, so he's going to pass his turn. And keep in mind, like, he's still got Detect Good and Evil on there, and I forgot to mention that earlier, but, you know, if there was any undead skeletons, he would be aware of it right now. So he didn't detect that earlier, though, but it says it lasts up to 10 minutes, so he's still concentrating on Detect Good and Evil. So when he did that check and he was trying to see if there was any more of those centipedes, but it's really the fire beetles, then he would know that they're not undead skeletons. I mean, maybe they're skeletons skittering along the walls, and that would be pretty freaky. But no, he didn't do that. So he's still concentrating on that, which means that if he tries something else that requires concentration, like I think Bless does, then he would lose his concentration. So he doesn't want to cast Blessed just yet, but that would make up to 3 creatures like himself and his allies. It would basically power them up, but he doesn't really want to do that right now anyways, because he's concentrating on Detective Good and Evil. So let's move on to the next person. So now we move on to the Centipede B. So this Centipede here, they basically only have a bite attack, and they have a speed of 30 feet. So that means they can climb things at 30 feet. So, you know, they're on the ground. They're not going to try to go up on the walls here because they have no ranged attack. They can't spit acid out of their forehead or anything like that. That would be pretty dope if they could. But I'm going to say that like this one was like on the wall, actually, like this. So it's going to need 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and it's going to go right up against her, and it's going to make a bite attack. So you look on here for the attacks. It's a melee attack roll. It has a reach of 5 feet. She's 5 feet away, and we're going to roll to see if it hits. You roll a d20. It rolled a 3, and then you look on there. There's always a plus added on to the hit roll to see if it hits, it has a +4 to hit. So it's 3 + 4 is a 7, and you're going to check against her armor class, which is basically like her defense. You know, whether or not she can dodge it or her armor can take the blow. And it looks like her AC is... Her armor class is normally 11, but when she's got chainmail, it bumps it up to 16. So you look on here, her armor class is 16. A 7 is not enough to hit, so it whiffs. So you narrate that as it lunges towards you, frothing at the mouth, and you know, but she manages to dodge because she sees it coming. It's a telegraphed attack. It's going all the way across the room just to hit her, and just as he casts light, wing, you know, like, ah, and then like just as he lights, it's just in time for her to see this nasty looking centipede emerging out of the glimmer of the shadows as it emerges out from the darkness. And just as he lights his mace, she sees it in time to dodge or whatever. Thank goodness. And she yells out to him, you know, ah, thanks or whatever. You know, they got some camaraderie back and forth. The player can role play that however they want, but you see, it doesn't have to, even though it's all happening, you know, in turns, you can make it, narrate it like it's happening in real time. And I recommend you do that. You have the thing happen, and then you narrate what happened a little bit different, and you kind of clean it up in the narrative as you go. Same thing with like the pit trap. When they fell in here earlier, it's like you could just tell them that they fall into the pit trap, and then okay, so the video cut out for a second there, but I was basically just saying, like, you know, I would always recommend that you know, have something happen and then you narrate a little bit afterwards and you clean it up afterwards. So like earlier with the pit trap, they fell into the pit trap, you make maybe a dex saving throw, you have them roll bludgeoning, you know, get ready to roll bludgeoning damage, but as they're rolling for that stuff, you say like, you know, how do you role play this scenario? And the person might be like, the girl might be like, oh, is it kobolds you say? Well, we should probably check out for some traps. Ah, shit. And then he goes, ah, damn it, I knew it. So she was ready to check for traps. And of course, she's not a stupid person. Like a lot of times, you know, you don't want the DM to make the players feel like they're dumb. I mean, they're heroes. But, you know, she was just about to start talking about traps. And, oh, she never expected the trap would be immediately on the very first entrance. She thought it'd be somewhere deeper into the cave or whatever. So, and then the same thing for here. It's like, you know, we say what happens, you know, in a turn-based sense, but then we clean it up in a real-time sense. So obviously the dwarf went first and cast light on his mace, and then she goes, or the centipede goes. But the way it works out, we just say it like it happens in real time. He lights his torch as this thing runs forward. The centipede emerges from the darkness as he casts light, and you know, it's scary because it's coming out of the dark and it attacks her. Okay, so anyways, I don't know if this got captured or not, and because my recording shut off for a second, but this thing rolled and it did damage. This thing missed. But this one went up here on its next turn, Centipede A. It went up, it attacked, and it rolled a 17 + 4 for a 21, which did hit, which beat her armor class of 16 for heavy armor. And then I rolled for damage here with the poison, and it said it was 1d4 + 2 piercing, so it did 4 damage. So I took away more of her health. I think I took away 3 of her health actually, because it was 1 + 2 for 3, so she's down to 6 HP. And I was just mentioning she might want to start looking at her second wind ability, because that lets her, as a bonus action, take one of these tokens away, and then she gains 1d10 + 1 HP. But she might think about that on her turn. So let's go to her turn. So next up, we got the Seraphine, okay? So, also when she got bit, she got poisoned, so don't forget that. So let's check the poison condition over here. It says poison condition. While you have the poison condition, you experience the following effect. Ability checks and attacks are affected. You have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks, so that's bad. So when she's about to go ahead and attack, she's going to have disadvantage on that because she's poisoned, okay? And you write that down on here. You can, I would probably get some kind of condition tracker, you know, something that you can put down here, like people, they sell little rings or something like that, or you can use a little bottle cap or whatever to just denote certain conditions. But yeah, that way you can visually see it on the map that she has the poison condition, and it lasts until her next turn. It says until the start of the Centipede's next turn, okay? So I'll write down for her that she's poisoned. I'm just going to put PSN for poison, or PlayStation Network. Maybe she's a PS fan, PlayStation. And then we're going to move on. So now we're going to move on to the top of the round. But before we do that, now that it's on to round 2, and you might want to like keep track of. I notice there's nothing to keep track of rounds here. So that was round 1. Here, this is round 2. Okay. At the top of round 2, we're going to introduce some new enemies. So we're going to introduce, let's just say one fire beetle. Let's say the fire beetle is their boss or something like that. Okay. We're going to roll for initiative for that. It rolled a nat 1, so it's actually going to go at the very bottom. But it probably gets a plus to its initiative. So let's see. It's going to beat out the girl probably, even though she has a +1 to her initiative. She rolled a 2 actually. I should probably rewrite her thing here because she got 1 + 1 for a 2. And it says the giant fire beetle gets a +0 to their initiative. So yeah, it actually is going to go past her. I'll just write the GFB, giant fire beetle, okay? And her hit points are down to 6 right now. And Ulforth's are still at maximum amount, because he has 8. Okay, so he's at 8, she's at 6, and the centipedes are at their maximum amount. The giant fire beetle has 4 HP, which is not a whole lot. And the centipedes, they have 9 HP. I think I remember it as being 9 HP. Whatever the card. Oh, here it is. 9. Okay, so I narrate this by saying, Ulforth, as you light your torch, you also see that you're not the only one who has cast light in this room. As a strange red-orange fiery glow emerges from the ceiling as a giant fire beetle crawls down behind you and tries to block off your path, trying to use these other two as bait to try to draw you in. The Kobolds didn't mention that the many legs might also include this guy, and so he is going to be attacking on the next turn, but he's going to be moving at the end of everybody, so they'll have a chance to attack him. So we're going to go with Ulforth here because he's the top of the round. Okay, so Ulforth is going to see the giant fire beetle, and if he had not lit that light already, then he probably would be relying on this thing for its light source. So he doesn't really care about that right now. So he's actually gonna. It's probably a new player, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go over here and try to attack the centipede." Now you tell the player that you can give them a one warning about this, but they're leaving within the attack range of the centipede, so it can actually use its reaction to attack him as he turns his back to him and tries to run away. It's called an opportunity attack. So, but I'm gonna say he's freaked out by this thing all of a sudden showing up there. So he's actually freaked out, and we're gonna role play this. Like, hopefully the player just kind of embraces the role playing, and he tries to stumble away. But as he does that, he tries to turn away, like, get away from this thing, and he does take an opportunity attack. So the giant fire beetle is gonna make its attack with its bite. So it's gonna be a melee roll. It's gonna be a 1d, or sorry. It's first of all, it's illuminating 10 feet around him, okay, and for 10 feet of bright light and 10 feet of dim light, and then it's going to make a bite, which has a reach of 5 feet, and attack roll is a melee roll +1, so it does 1 hit of fire damage. Okay, rolls a 5 +1, which is a 6, which is not enough to hit him, so he escapes out of there. He manages to go over, avoid the opportunity attack, and he's going to try to attack this Centipede A, okay? And, it was a 16. A 16 plus 4 would be a 20. 20 beats its armor class of 14. So he's going to try to attack with his sword here, or his mace. If you look on here, it tells you right here. Let's see what it says under there. Yeah, simple weapon, huh? Yeah. This is a simple weapon. It's not a martial. What's nice is it actually shows you that it's a 1d6 plus your strength modifier. It shows the little cube for the d6, so you know what to look for. So this is the d6 right there. I would have preferred that they had color-coded these so that it's easier, so you could just say, like, pick up the blue one, because the blue one's the one I use for my mace attacks or something like that, or the d6 is the blue one, or the d20 is the blue one, and then, you know, the d6 is the red one or something like that. But anyways, so he's going to roll for that. He rolled a 6. Great. So you know, applaud them, like he's really all fired up because of the whole you know, the adrenaline of the situation, and he's going to take his glowing mace, and he's going to take that and do a 6 plus his strength. His strength is a +2, so he's going to do 8 damage. 6 plus 2 and 8 damage. So this thing is down. Now it's actually down to 9 HP, but since it's really cool and he rolled so well and I want the player to feel good, I'm going to say that this centipede actually only has 8 HP. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I want this encounter to be over quicker. So I'm going to say that Centipede A has... I'm going to say Centipede B has 9 HP, but Centipede A only has 8, okay? And I'll just say, you know what, that's pretty badass. You kill the thing, and you crush it in one blow. Because, you know, he dealt max damage, and I'm trying to make him feel good. So you can always fudge it that way, but if I was playing this, if I had this out in front of everyone, then I wouldn't be able to fudge it that way. And it's cooler, actually, for when he rolls massive damage, to just say, you fucking crush this thing. You know, you take your dagger, your mace, this glowing thing, and you just come down on it, and it's great. Now, if you forgot that, it shows you on here that he has melee attack rolls. He gets a +4, and range attack rolls he gets a +1. Anyways, let's move on to the next round here. So that was his action. He really doesn't have as much he can do for the bonus action. I tell him that this was in fact the thing he detected, the evil that he detected, but it was not necessarily an undead. So if he wants to, he doesn't need to keep concentrating on that. So he could do something with his bonus action, but I don't think bless is a bonus action. I think that's an action. It is an action. So he could look on here, see if he has any bonus actions. Just search on here to see magic action, mass action. Oh, Shield of Faith, bonus action. Target one creature within 60 feet of you, and they have a +2 to their armor class. But it does require concentration. So if he wants to do this right now, he could cast Shield of Faith, and I think I'm going to have him do that. He's as a precaution, he's going to cast Shield of Faith with a bonus action, one creature within 60 feet of you. So he's going to do that to his ally. He's going to buff her up, and he's going to give Seraphine a +2 to her armor class. So you might want to write a note here that she has like +2 to her AC, okay? Because of Shield of Faith. I'm going to put SOF for Shield of Faith. Just a little something like that so you notice that. Now, of course, if you have a token or something, you could denote that. But that is going to break his concentration on Detect Good and Evil. And this thing is going to last for up to 10 minutes as well. So for the next 10 minutes, she's going to have a +2 to her AC. So that's his job as the support class, to help with healing and also help with buffing up his allies. And that's a very good spell. So she starts to glow with this arcane energy as she gets a +2 as well. Okay, so then we're going to move on from Ulforth. We're going to move to Centipede B, because Centipede A is dead. So we can take that off of the initiative. I don't know if you guys can see this. I'm going to take Centipede A off. It is dead, okay? Conditions, how about dead? That's a good condition. Now, monsters don't make death saving throws, but the players do. So we have a Cleric here. We have a Fighter. If they were doing this, if they were downed, went to 0 HP, they would make a d20 roll, and that's 11, so it's higher than 10. So anything that's a good roll is like over 10 is going to be a success, like that. And if they rolled like a 5, that would be a failure. And then once they get 3 death saves or successes, they either die or they become stabilized. Stabilized doesn't mean you come back up out of combat, but if you're confused on death saving rules, look it up in the back of there. It's pretty common. It's whenever it happens all the time when a player gets downed, and it's usually pretty hard to kill somebody unless they roll really bad and their ally can help them get back up. So anyways, that's death saves for you. Okay, so let's go on to Centipede B. Centipede B is going to attack the girl now, because she was just attacking them previously. So I'm going to have her, the Centipede, roll the hit. Again, I want to make sure I have my card out for the Centipede, which is right here, just in case I miss anything. It rolled a 5, and I think it's like a +1 to hit, right? So, no, +1 +4 to hit, okay? So 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 does not beat her armor class, so it tries to snap at her knees. But, you know, she's got that extra boost from her buddy there. So her armor class is actually, it's not 16. Where is that on here? It's not 16, it's actually 18 right now, so there's no way, you know, but you can make it seem like it's because, you know, she's really feeling herself after get that shield of faith. So not only does she go to stop it with her sword, but her armor itself shimmers as the shield of faith, you know, repels the attack as well, and there's no way that this thing could have hit her. So then let's move on to the next round, is our next turn, which is going to be Seraphine. So she's back, she just blocked that attack. What does she do? Well, the player's like, well, I hit it with my greatsword finally. So she's going to try to smack with the greatsword. The greatsword has a 2d6 plus the strength added to it. And I'm trying to remember, did we skip her turn last time? Can't remember. Anyways, maybe we skipped her turn. If I skipped her turn, sorry. I'm just trying to record this really fast. This thing just came out yesterday, so let's see if I can get this going. So she's going to roll the hit. She rolled a 19, and we're going to add on her to hit modifier here. She gets a plus 5 to attack roll, so 19 plus 5 is 24, so she is going to definitely hit, and because its armor class is only 14, and now we're going to roll for damage. So it tells you right on the card, where is it? It's right here. It's 2d6 plus her strength. Her strength is a plus 3, so she's going to get whatever this is, plus, you're going to take 2 of these d6. 6 plus 2 is 8. You're going to do 8 plus her strength. Her strength is 3. 8 plus 3 is 11. She does 11 damage. Guess what? This thing only had 9 HP. This thing is also dead. Dead. Okay. And remove that from the map as well, because that one's also dead. And now it's just on for the giant fire beetle. So giant fire beetle, if it's smart, it would just run. And you might want to do that, especially if you're just trying to like make things go fast. You could just say this thing flees. It flees the cavern. It could live to fight another day. Maybe they find it in another cavern or something. But we're going to say this thing's kind of like, it's salivating. It really wants its meal. It saw the guy shaking in his boots when they first started. Maybe it's attracted to the light. It seems to, like, you know how moths are attracted to a flame? It's like that, like a moth to a flame. This thing is going to try to attack the dwarf. So it's going to go 5, 10 feet right there, try to attack him. And, you know, I'm not going to have him be flanked or anything like that. We're not using flanking rules. So now we're just going to roll the hit. So let's roll to see if its melee attack hits. That's a 4. And it gets a plus 1, I think, to its bite attack. So it tries to bite for 5. 5 is not enough to beat its armor class, and it's not going to do any fire damage to him. So we're going to just move on to the top of the round. Now we're on round 3. So we're back to Ulforth. Ulforth dodges this thing, and he's like, God damn it, I hate these things. Why won't they just die? And yeah, I'm going to snuff your lights out. And so he's going to roll, see if he can hit with his mace. He rolled a 12. It's a plus 4 to hit, so that's 16. 16 does beat its armor class. It has armor class of 13. So 16 beats 13, and now we're going to roll for damage. So he's going to roll his thing is 6 plus his strength, which is 2. So it's going to be whatever this is plus 2. This might kill it because it only has, let's see. He rolled a 6 again, so wow. So a 6 plus 2 is 8. He rolls 8 damage. I think that's double to kill this thing. It has 4 HP, okay? So we saw that right here. Its HP goes to 0. You know, we saw all these other guys, they went down to 0 too, and it is also dead. And that ends the combat, okay? So he squishes it. There's no loot to collect. You guys can do the aftermath of like how maybe they want to take a short rest. One thing I didn't do with the girl that I forgot to do, and that it's okay to do this even outside of combat, but it's supposed to be done in combat, is she was supposed to use her bonus action on her turn after killing that thing. After attacking it, she should have used bonus action second wind. So I'm gonna have her do that. So she's going to do bonus action second wind, and it says you can draw an unlimited well of physical and mental stamina, and as a bonus action, remove 1 power token to regain 1d10 plus 1 hit points. So I'm going to get out my d10. So here I got my d10. It's the one with the 0 on it. Don't get thrown off by the one that is the d12, because that one has the 10 on it. Like this. This is not the d10. This is I had to learn that the hard way because I was always so used to virtual tabletops that I don't know what a d10 is. So she's only going to recover 1. That really sucks. Now, if I had given her inspiration earlier for that like cool role-playing moment, I might let her re-roll even this. Technically, it's you can use inspiration to re-roll all sorts of different attack, all sorts of different rolls. So I'm gonna let her do that. You know, it sucks that she is only gonna get 1 point. So I'm gonna let her re-roll that with inspiration. She got a 5, so she's gonna get 5 HP back plus 1, so 6. And she's actually gains full HP because she was down to 6 HP. So she's totally back. Now she's totally back to 12 HP that way. So that inspiration really paid off for her. So now instead of her being at 7 HP, she's gonna go to 12 HP with the bonus action Second Wind. And that ends our combat, okay? So we can put the combat aside for now. And then from there on, we just have them go through the rest of the cave here. So I'm not gonna run through the rest of the adventure per se here, but suffice it to say, I'm gonna show you a couple different ways they can turn out, okay? So let's say that you have them go through the cave here. They follow the sounds of the dragon wormling. Maybe they run into their buddy here who's like, probably has a name. I would probably come up with a name. Maybe his name is Korgath or something. And Korgath sees them, Korgath the Kobold, and he's like, you know, he sees that they took out the centipedes, and so they're going to go over here. So we're going to set this up too. So we're going to go on to the next area where they have areas A4 and A5, where they have a thing of junk that you can go investigate. Maybe point that out to the players. They can go through the junk. If they go through the junk, they find there's a magic item in there, and then they press on to see what it's at the end of the tunnel here. And what they'll find at the end of the tunnel is there's a wormling. So we're going to go to that next. So I think it's called A5 is larder. There's a stone door that's ajar. Yeah, this is the stone, this is the door right here. There's actually a doorway that's locked, so make sure you note that. That's why it's always good to check out the map so you don't just have them walk through here. They can't walk through because there's a door. They find that this stone door to that room is ajar, and that a persistent ear-splitting cry emanates from within. So when you enter, you read this box text to them. This chamber contains barrels and sacks of dried and salted meats, grains, and vegetables. A dragon wormling with copper scales sits on a scant pile of coins and eggshell fragments in the corner of the room, shrieking endlessly. You know, like really sell it if you want with the role play there. If you always wanted to be a baby dragon, you can be one. 2 small bipedal reptiles with worried expressions deposit a handful of coins and junk at the creature's feet. And then it basically tells you, you know, so let's get the coin, let's get the tokens out here. You know, you got a couple of these kobolds here. You got the little baby dragon, little copper dragon who's just hatched out of his shell, and they're trying to appease it with gold. And basically the players have an opportunity. They might have just got some gold. I mean, there was some stuff in this treasure. There was some magic items and stuff like that. I won't run through the whole thing here just for the sake of time. But, you know, they can soothe. There's a whole section on soothing the wormling. So you can use a, you know, persuasion check to assure the wormling they're there to help. But, you know, like, all of these influence action you take to try to influence the wormling, they would be with advantage if a character who offers the wormling at least 10 gold pieces, you know, makes the wormling stop its wailing and its attitude improves to friendly, as do all the attitudes of the kobolds in the cave. And then the wormling then asks the characters whether they should stay with the kobolds or return home. So basically, like, if you pass the check, it's going to be done with advantage if you offer to add gold to the pile. I mean, that sucks for you guys, but that you're losing some of your gold, but you just probably found some by looting this place out. You're going to get a magic item magic items are worth way more than whatever they have. And as part of your reward, I'm pretty sure they give you a magic item. Treasure. The wormling's hoard consists of 25 gold pieces and 1 magic item. Draw a card from the magic item deck to determine the item. So, you know, you're probably not going to be able to take the gold from the dragon because the whole point is you're giving it the hoard. It likes gold. But from there, you can actually get a magic item from its hoard because the kobolds, they collect all this stuff. They don't know how to use magic items, so they're going to give you this as treasure. So it tells you right here, treasure. Treasure entities like this describe loot in an area. Usually treasure consists of gold pieces, magic items, or both. You know, and then you pull from the magic item deck, okay? And it tells you to share with others and make sure that you give it. So you go to your magic item thing here, and you can pull randomly from it. But what I would recommend is actually probably not pulling randomly from it. I would give something that matches it for the player. So we're going to go through here. Remember, the purple ones are the special potions and the special items, you know, like there's potions of healing on here, just like how the mundane equipment, you know, you start out with the potions of healing, but they also have like really good ones like potions of invisibility, potions of greater healing. Those are really expensive actually. So you could actually give them something appropriate, like maybe you give them +1 mace that's like it's better than the girl's mace that she has, or you give plate armor instead of chainmail. So this is only something that it's heavy armor. It's only something that she can take, but you might want to just have something ready that's just fun in general. Like for role playing, you can give a cloak of billowing, which gives them advantage when they're trying to persuade humanoid enemies with their persuasion checks. There's all sorts of cool cloaks. There's stuff that self repairs itself, and then there's like eyes of the eagle here, which I think helps with like checks. While wearing them, you have advantage on perception checks that rely on sight. That's actually a really good item, because as you saw throughout this whole thing, there was a lot of perception checks. Perception check is the #1 most like godlike skill that you can have in this game, because you always want to be looking at things with your sight. So in conditions of clear visibility, you can make out details of even extremely distant creatures and objects as small as 2 feet across. So basically it gives you like advantage in a lot of like clear lit conditions. This wouldn't help you in a dark scenario, I suppose, or if there's heavy fog or whatever, but it will help you just point out, like, you know, like if you're looking for a trap and it's not dimly lit, you have out your I'll give an example with the pit trap here. Like, let's say we had our dude out here, and they were smart this time, and before they went into the dark tunnel, they lit up something, and then they can see that the ground's a little funny over here. So you give me a perception check, and you notice that there's a little tiny wrinkle where you can see that the tarp that they laid down looks like you can pick it up, and it's something that's really small, but it's basically give them like a really good chance of noticing stuff. And then, you know, what I might have them do for the pit trap is like do a perception check, and then do an investigation check afterwards to see if they can figure out exactly that it's a trap. If not, I just tell you that it looks like the area around here is a different color, and it doesn't seem, there's something not right about it. So they might just jump over it as a precaution. But to do an investigation check, they might have to do something where they can like find out that it's a trap, and then disarm it. So anyways, I hope that helps you guys run this Kobold cave. I may have missed stuff, so if I did, I'll try to probably put out a little bit of guide with this. If this comes out on YouTube, I'll probably try to add on like some extra stuff, some extra graphics and things like that that make it a little easier to run. But yeah, after you're done with this Kobold layer, you get your loot, you go back out into the wilderness. So you'd have them try to return back to the keep, but first they'd have to go along a trail, and so you'd go through the wilderness, and there's a map for the wilderness included. It's over there. You have them go through the wilderness over here. So they're going from the caves of the chaos right here. They're going to kind of try to come across the trail. They might have to stop by the fens. There's this Tamarack region. As they clear these regions, they can level up. But yeah, they could always go on to another cave here too if they want to while they're out here, because everybody's at full HP right now. They're probably okay. They want to make probably a long rest though. Eventually, long rest lets you replenish all of your HP. It's really good, and you can come back and spend the money that you got at the keep, and you can get more missions from the keep and stuff like that. But what I would recommend that you do is probably, you know, allow them to, if they want to stay out here, maybe do one more cave, but then mention that it's getting dark and that they should probably head back or something like that, because you got to remind them that you do have to go through the wilderness, and there's random encounters and other quests that they might need extra stamina to get through, like these wooded areas. And they can also level up by clearing some of these areas out too, so they can level up from level 2 and level 3. So hopefully that guys helps you guys run this. If somebody wants me to run through how to do the keep itself, you can do that, but that's a lot of social stuff, and I wanted to get right to the combat to see if you really could run this without using any of the core booklets, you know, without the player's handbook, without the DMG, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and without the monster manual. And it seems like, yeah, with the play guide, it's got everything that's in here is stuff that can be found on like all the conditions and stuff, and all these things that you need to find out about these different areas of knowledge. They can be found in the back of this, and they only mention ones in this module or in these booklets or whatever his loose collection of stuff that is found in the back. So if you guys like this, make sure that you give it a like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you check out all my other homebrew that I have on my channel for how I like to run my games and my D&D stuff, and consider running this on a virtual tabletop. It's actually cheaper to run this on a virtual tabletop than it is in person, but for me, I wanted to have all these assets available to me for later campaigns. Like, these are just nice maps that you can use, generic maps that I can use anytime, that, you know, they're not necessarily labeled cave. This is cave A, so, you know, that lets me use it for future campaigns, or I can use, you know, some of the fen maps or whatever, and I can reuse any of these tokens, all these monster tokens and stuff. So always recycle, reuse what you got there. And if you guys want to see, again, you go through the stuff for the keep on the Borderland NPCs, and maybe give you some ideas behind the storyline, and maybe like how you could wrap this in with the cultists that I mentioned. I think that's actually a really good way of driving it, because monsters, they might not have the strongest motivations because they're not the smartest things in the world, but those cultists, they could be trying to undermine the Borderlands, and then once you clear out the cultists, maybe it escalates, or the monsters are overrunning the ravines, or maybe there's something driving them out of the ravines. And I would actually really like to see Wizards of the Coast release, instead of a levels 1 through 3 adventure, have a follow-up to this that goes levels 4 through 8, so you can continue on with your character and maybe continue to progress through the Borderlands, and also using the existing assets from this adventure. So, you know, they could still use a lot of the similar overarching maps, maybe not the individual caves and the individual encounter maps, but maybe just give some extra maps and let it all fit into the pictures that they have of the areas, you know, like the wilderness area and the larger maps and stuff like that. So hopefully this helps you guys out. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to cover. If you have any questions, any DM advice, I'm your guy. I'm David the Water Dadian, and this has been a Vicarious Ventures production. And I think the camera went out actually on that. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Hello and welcome to a walkthrough of